you as either a person or your company are literally kicked out of the banking system.
Like they did to Kanye.
Exactly, like they did to Kanye. My partner Ben's father has been debanked.
Really?
We had an employee who...
For what?
For having the wrong politics. for saying unacceptable things. Under current banking regulations, here's a great thing. Under current banking regulations, after all the reforms of the last 20 years, there's now a category called a politically exposed person, PEP. And if you are a PEP, you are required by financial regulators to kick them off of your to kick them out of your bank.
What?
You're not allowed.
But what if you're politically on the left?
Well, that's fine.
No,
because they're not politically exposed.
So no one on the left gets debanked.
No, I have not heard of a single instance of anybody on the left getting debanked.
Can you?
Yo, what's happening? Hey, Jay, what's going on? Sorry it took me for a little bit to reply. Just so you know, in the future, I'm not ignoring you. I have, because I have dual stream set up and it's through a plug-in, it gets kind of finicky about whether or not I can actually type a reply. I would have to do it from, I'd have to just go on to the YouTube stream itself and then reply there. So sorry about that. I didn't ignore you. I wasn't trying to blow you off or anything. I just there's no box on OBS like there normally is when you're doing a single stream. So, but anyway, so with that out of the way, how are you guys doing today? I hope everyone's doing well. Me, I'm doing well, and once again, sorry. I did mention this yesterday. It's kind of brief. I should have gone over a little bit more, but there was a basically sort of I'll just say a financial situation that I had to be around for that just so happened to be at 12 originally, and then it kind of got pushed back to about 1 and then 1:30ish, and then eventually it was about around 2 o'clock-ish, but still I wouldn't have wanted the pressure of not knowing for sure, and I would have probably had to wait, and it took a while to get done. It took a little bit longer to get done than I actually expected, but yeah, I figured it would be too big of a deal, but once again, I'm starting really late. I didn't really mean to, but I did at least mention it yesterday, because I did do that Sunday special yesterday, and that, I checked, I was like, wow, I meant that thing to be like about an hour or less, and it turned out to be the length of a regular episode. That wasn't much of a special or a outlier episode of some kind. That was just a regular. I should have just labeled it one, but oh well. Anyway, so today. Oh, and by the way, I want to make mention of this just because I noticed this a couple weeks ago, or about a week ago, and explained a lot. Actually, I didn't understand what the hell was going on. On YouTube, the little X logo for the link to your X channel or your X profile, that was actually set up incorrectly. It was set up to work with a channel that was... Oh no, it was set up to work with a channel that didn't even exist anymore. So, yeah, it was just leading to a blank page. I don't know why I never checked it before. What's going on? Hold on just a second. Something is... oh, is it this? Hold on. I think I know what it might be. Hang on. Oh, not that. No. I notice I'm coming in a little quiet, and I shouldn't be. So here, let me, oops. Well, there's one thing. The volume's just down a little bit. Fix that. What about microphone? Here. Sorry, give me just a second. I just want to make sure this is, yesterday it was spot on. I was surprised I got it so good yesterday, but, because I had just a little sliver of time to get it to work. But it's not here. Let me see. Well, I guess I'm gonna just have to pull this up. Here it is. Okay. Is there a volume overall knob for this, or is this just? Oops, something. Okay. Oh yeah, there is a here. Hold on. Okay, that should. That helped a little bit. Let me do one last thing. Oh, I think I know what it is. Yeah, that's it. Okay, that should. Yeah, that did it. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, I did want to talk about this today because yesterday it was kind of a, even by the intro clip when I was going over it, it was the celebratory stage of the nomination finally of Kash Patel to the director of the FBI, and that was a really great sign. But something came up in my video recommendations yesterday that was something I should have spent more time on, but I'm glad I didn't, kind of, in a way, because this kind of deserves its own episode in terms of its both of its severity and its all the information surrounding how this whole thing came to be, as well as recent events that have caused further complications. And well, to say the least, it's a very messy situation, very messy situation that unfortunately is going to be difficult to figure out, yet at the same time is going to be critical for this to work the way that that Donald Trump will is essentially planning it to work out to be, because there can't be any mistakes with in particular the nomination process. That's really the first step, but it's one of the most critical, because these are going to be people that are going to be consistently around him 24/7. And one of the things that was the serious detriment to his presidency in his last term was he had people that really had no serious loyalty to Donald Trump, had no serious loyalty to MAGA agenda or to the United States, quite frankly. These are people that have consistently shown they have no interest in upholding their oath to the Constitution, and always putting the needs of the American people above the needs of either themselves or their political party or their agency or whatever bureaucratic institute they belong to, or whatever it is that drives them. They're not driven by at all some sort of sense of duty to carry out what they're selected to do, and we're highly responsible for the most part of why people so often criticize Trump for not doing this and not doing that. It's like, do you remember the news cycle during President Trump's first what do you call it, term? It was I mean, I heard more in the news about the findings of all these senators and people in FBI and people in this agency and that agency that had all this dirt they found. And good, man, good to hear it. Good. I downloaded KOF 13, by the way, just to preempt, to make sure that I had that ready. I forgot, because like I said, that game is it's one of the tougher KOFs. But anyway, yeah, there was just, that was the news cycle for a long time. And even I'll never forget. My brother loved this too. It was pretty hilarious. The day that they decided they didn't have they couldn't really bring a case. There was no charge they could bring that would stick with President Trump because they couldn't find the evidence of Russian collusion that would definitively be upheld in court. And as he was walking from the White House, the press stopped him, and of course they're asking, Mr. President, what do you think of the developments in the Congress today? He says, great, no collusion. And he's just like no collusion, nothing bad. And he's just like, it's like he's so happy about it. And then immediately afterwards, there's another thing launched that's like, oh no, he did this now. I don't think it was the Ukraine thing immediately, but there were the midterms around that time, and that didn't go so well because that's when we got introduced to the pure depths of immoral overreach that people like Adam Schiff are really willing to go to. Which, by the way, the fact that, I mean, I've talked about California before. I have a love-hate relationship with the state. I love going to certain parts of the state where it's beautiful. It's absolutely serene and just the most relaxing place you can imagine. On the other hand, there's places that are not so great, and there's also a governmental a state that's government and state government is so highly partisan left that, like I said, we've had a ban on menthol cigarettes in this state, and we've had probably more rights taken away than in any other state. We have government officials who openly talk about attempting to take away Second Amendment protected rights of citizens. There's so much wrong with the state. But one thing that I can say that makes me probably more ashamed to be even a resident of California more than anything else is that somehow this state manages to allow a guy like Adam Schiff, someone who is the most weaselly, slimy, disgusting little piece of garbage that he's a real freaking weasel. This guy not only not being punished, but getting promoted to the Senate instead of being in the House anymore, where he was already, someone who was nominated or who was selected as the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, which he was not responsible in the slightest enough to be able to hold a position like that. But on top of which, then he was censured, and because of his continued freaking insistence of this anonymous whistleblower with all this evidence in plain sight of collusion with Russia that was never produced, and the whistleblower was never produced, and to this day they still insist there was a whistleblower, but they never have disclosed who it is, and they never have whoever they claim it is, if there is one, has never stepped up to say, yeah, I did this. Because you saw the FBI whistleblowers, they came and did what was right because they knew it was the right thing to do. If this guy believes it's such an important thing, if Donald Trump is this huge threat and he's in bed with the Russians and it's such a big deal, he won't drag his lazy ass to Congress to testify? No, of course not, because even if he does exist, he's a coward, and he would like to just lob insults and accusations from his anonymous because he knows his little spokesman on television, Adam Schiff, and people like Jamie Raskin and Dan Goldman will go running to any camera that's on to tell everybody about the evil Donald Trump. But anyway, the reason I'm going over all of this is because there's something very highly specific that was kind of mentioned. It was while I was watching, and I have some clips today to play, of a channel called Rattlesnake TV. He's a guy named Jake. He mostly does cultural topics. He doesn't do a lot of very specifically political commentary, but he's seen a lot of interviews with Kash Patel. He's very well informed about the politicization of the FBI and the DOJ against the American people. In particular, one political party, as shown by that intro clip. And essentially, the starting point for the things I'm going to get into today is just by that one statement alone. It might not seem like much, but that's the same kind of thing that you see done in China or other authoritarian countries where the government has enough control to lock you out of services, to lock you out of your bank account, to lock you from owning certain types of things, like sometimes a vehicle in China, sometimes a gun in the United States. It's like, you might not necessarily be someone who, like I'm sure in a place like mainland China, there's a, what do you call it? Damn. It seems weird. I can't freaking figure. There we go. Yeah, it seems like there's this. Wait. So hold on. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Let me get back to where I was pointing at. Well, okay. Let me just start again. I'm sorry. I can't believe I lost my train of thought. But here we go. So the issue essentially is that with all the things that have been going on lately, and the nomination of a guy like Kash Patel, who, you look at his record, you look what he's done, you look at his positions that he's held, you look at the exemplary job he's been able to do, and you look at his political affiliations, and it makes 100% sense. I don't know why you would advocate to put people into positions when I know why a Democrat would, but I don't know why a rational person would. Sorry, Democrats, I didn't mean to insult you. Why leftists would want to do it this way, but I don't know why any rational American would want to nominate somebody who they thought was kind of a relative, maybe 50-50 chance, or especially if there was less than that chance of them actually following through with what I said my agenda was. And so because you've got a guy who has proven himself to be extremely loyal to President Trump, and just in general to the transparency of our government agencies to the American people, I don't know why you would want that unless you're a crazy hyper-leftist who believes that January 6th was an insurrection, and believes that like Christopher Wray is a very admirable, bipartisan sort of minded person who doesn't overstep his boundaries because he doesn't do it. It's all just meant to smear, but there's something in particular that was really becoming obvious as I was watching clip after clip of this stuff, and it's like, once again, it's not about their concern about Kash Patel's loyalty. They're obviously not concerned about that. They're not concerned about Trump in the slightest. They wouldn't be concerned about Kash Patel at all. Same thing goes with Elon and Vivek and Tulsi and RFK Jr. and everybody that's been nominated for a position there. It was also true of Matt Gaetz, which is that these are people that are completely 100% in agreement with the fact that we've reached a point where the abuses in Congress cannot be they cannot be allowed to what's it called? Yeah. Anyway, they cannot be. You can't have people you can't trust to run the most important aspects of the federal government, especially those in the purview of the executive branch. And the nominations Trump has made this time are people that it is surprising as hell that you see a RFK Jr. or a Tulsi Gabbard or even Elon Musk with Trump. I talk about this all the time, but they are in such agreement on very specific areas that are of extreme importance, not to mention the fact that these are things that should have been handled a long time ago, and previous Democrats have espoused how important those things are for them and their families, and now they abandon that for mostly just abortion advocacy. But if you don't have somebody who is there, who is in some ways battle tested, for lack of a better term, at least in the face of threats such as the type of threat mentioned at the beginning of this clip with debanking, or with, in worst case scenario, facing charges from the DOJ about some sort of obscure, ridiculous law they think is applicable to your particular situation. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. And that's where I really jeez, I'm drawing blanks today. I'm not even freaking this time Trump can't make a bad cabinet pick that's going to be constantly leaking to the mainstream media, allowing media to, I mean, there is freedom of the press, of course, but, and I hear a lot of people on the left also mention, well, but nobody's above the law. It's like, really, nobody's above the law. So, as I was just talking about a minute ago, Hunter Biden's laptop and all the information on it, calling it Russian disinformation on a notepad. Well, this might be about. It's definitely Hong Kong. Damn, there's some cool looking guys. By the way, if you've never played Ascension, it's a really good game. It's a really good game. And I kind of screwed it up with a visual so the picks this time are very meticulous, very important, very well known, and even if they're somewhat politically misaligned, the parts where they align are very, very important. And I'll say this too because it gets lost in translation a lot of times, but the president's cabinet needs to be ready to go to work on the first day, preferably sooner. But regardless, they need to be able to start the show on time with an audience that's worth making sure you have anything but that. So, do you have a question about about how, and they never actually looking for a question. They just want people to shut up and anyway, so what am I ultimately getting at? Well, remember the backlash for Matt Gaetz, and remember how the left went berserk, and they were just trying to slam Matt Gaetz time after time after time after time, and basically had made it so that it's damn, and now I keep hitting the mic. Sorry. There we go. But yeah, they have been trying to insinuate these sort of dark motives to. In fact, I got a clip to play that's kind of hilarious about that. This little one of the twerps that is on Piers Morgan occasionally, and I've spoken about that before. How I as much as I like Piers and respect him for the things he's done right, the things he's wrong about, or the things he's associated with that he's been either fooled by or for some reason buys into, which I don't think that's really the case. I think he's just, while he's an incredibly intelligent man, he's kind of, I think it's still kind of cultural norms that he's been experiencing since, his dad was driving probably. But anyway, yeah, that's him in a nutshell. And you're not going there. Okay. Yeah, I don't need that. So anyway, I still am doing it again. But yeah, with Matt Gaetz, they lost their minds. Everybody was freaking out. But the real thing that did it, it wasn't the public opinion. It wasn't the corporate media. It wasn't, which I'm going to bring this up today once again because I'm so tired of this stupid term getting thrown around. It wasn't because of quote-unquote social media influencers. Jeez Louise, I swear. Anybody that... I've said this before, but once again, it bears saying, anybody that calls himself an influencer on YouTube or on any other social media platform, they aren't influencing shit. Don't even allow yourself to be even using that term to discuss these people, because there's nothing that should be influencing about what they do or say. But with that being said, oh, and by the way, yeah, like I don't care how good this channel ever does. I don't care if I was the #1 show on the internet or on a podcast or whatever. I don't care. I don't ever want to be referred to as an influencer. It is such a stupid term. And I'm sure the people on the left love it, but that's because they can role play out their fantasies of ultimate power and ultimate influence over a group of people, which they certainly seem to have in spades. But now here's where things kind of go crazy. When I played this clip of this little twerp, I can't even remember his name until I started the clip. And I said he was on Piers Morgan. He's one of these guys that is just so down to the wire. Your typical leftist today, where, arresting people who only did nonviolent crime or only did negative types of criminal activities or whatever. It's like it's really, really dumb. Not to mention completely misleading. But his worries are articulated very well in this clip. So let's get to that first, and then I'm going to get into... because with Matt Gaetz stepping down, there's a main reason for that. I mentioned that in the description, but I want to go into just exactly why that's really relevant for the newest nominees, especially Kash Patel. So let me pull this clip up, and then we'll go on to... I actually have quite a few clips, but to be fair, they're all fairly short. So I think the longest one's like about 4.5 minutes, and the others are anywhere from a minute or a minute and a half to maybe around 2, but nothing really other than that. It's just about 3 or 4 episodes of that, and 1 or 2 that was really massive. So yeah. I don't even remember what's going. Oh yeah. So this is who they asked on CNN to respond to the nomination of Kash Patel to the head of the director of the FBI. So if I can actually bring this up, that would be great. Oh, I see what I'm doing wrong, probably. Metro, blah, blah, blah. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I would have played it probably at this point. Anyway, where is that clip? I'm trying to remember. Where is the... oh, I remember now. Let's see. I got to navigate it to it, but I know where it is. Let's see. Should be this one, right? No, I don't think so. Did I find? Nope, still not. Okay, it's got to be in one spot. Because, oh, that's right. I trimmed it. All right, I recorded it with it trimmed, so it's got to be in one place. This is from the Dan Bongino show today, if I'm not mistaken. That's right. Okay, now I know where to look. Yep, here it is. Okay, hold on just a second. Let me get this queued up, and we'll get going. Oh, it's here, but I lost the actual thumbnail. Where did it go? Here we go. Yeah. I named this something really funny on purpose so I would pay attention and notice it. Okay, here we go. All right. This is also, once again, this is from Jake at Rattlesnake TV. One of the intro clips he put together. So, part of a compilation. But anyway. And of course, this is on MSNBC, so you're going to get nothing but the most even-handed approach to everything on MSNBC, of course. But no, that's ridiculous. So anyway, so let's get this going. You might recognize this weasel who's been on other shows recently, as well as once again Piers Morgan. I have no idea why anybody would want to hear what this idiot has to say, because he's nothing but a political analyst, and a bad one at that, and a completely dishonest one at that. But not to mention he looks like a complete freaking bum. I mean, what's going on here? Looks like a freaking washed up version of what's that guy's name? Luigi from the Super Mario Brothers movie. Gosh, why can't I think of his name? Hispanic guy. Jeez. It's escaping me. I'll remember it, I'm sure, at some point. John Leguizamo. I remembered. There we go. Anyway, he looks like the crack-addicted brother of John Leguizamo. I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah, so here's his hot take on Kash Patel. Let's see what he has to say. What's the danger of far-right extremists like Kash Patel. Let's see.
To me, Kash Patel, and I don't say this lightly, is the most dangerous nominee that we've seen yet to our democracy. I mean, you might think that having Pete Hegseth running the military is a greater level of danger because of his lack of experience, or Tulsi Gabbard at intelligence. Right. But just as far as the threats to democracy that we were warning about before the election, and Kash Patel was a key player inside the Trump White House, pushing for and orchestrating the coup attempt in 2020. He was trying to completely take control of the Justice Department at the time.
I guess that clip got cut short. That's the sort of fear, more or less because he agrees with Trump on those points. But I think the ridiculous part of all of that is that he goes over, like, once again, you can tell this guy is just the model of your average leftist in today's media environment, like the attack on the Capitol. And when you always identify certain language that people use that gives away exactly who they are and what they think, and that's one of them. Attack on the Capitol, or trust the science is another one. The experts say is another one. Those types of things. They're always those little slogans that they use that let you know exactly where they stand. They're more than willing to let government just be essentially this group of people that don't do anything except for accept the opinions of the people selected as quote-unquote experts on it. That's why Dr. Fauci was the most paid person in the government for so long. It's because they didn't want to make any decisions as elected officials, and there's some point in that. They aren't particularly well researched in terms of infectious diseases. However, the point is those people should consult. They shouldn't make decisions. They should be able to give their advice and give their opinion. That shouldn't be the basis for the entire response or action that a government takes by following this person's advice to the T and making sure that everything is done exactly how they say. And that's another reason why, as I've said before, the left just don't understand the right the same way the right understands the left. And it's because of things like this. It's because of the idea that that Kash Patel is some danger because we've weaponized the justice system against... there's no denying it. There's no denying it that we've weaponized the justice system against conservatives and pro-life people and Catholics and people who are against trans ideology and people who are, whatever the list might be. There are people who just go along with that because it's what is said by people with the right level of distinction or some sort of trying to get a place for the well, anyway, I'm sorry. I was thinking about the trophies that get handed to people like this who, or the recognition that they get, the prizes that they're nominated for, or the medals that they receive, or whatever. But the point is that the reason that they see these things, and the reason they see Kash Patel as such a threat, partly, is because of that reaction. However, here's where things get a little sticky. And this is where the real danger point comes in. The first danger point. There's two main danger points. This is the first one, though. Now, the first is that it's true. Kash Patel is, without a doubt, somebody who is a MAGA, America First agenda type of person. He's been speaking out nonstop about the lawfare, about the weaponization of the justice system. He's pointed out all the things that were done wrong. And you know what, as a matter of fact, I haven't had to do this before, but let me try to do this real quick, because this would be really important to see. And it's one of the things that he's talked about, because to this day, you see it all the time. And it was done before the election. It's been done after the election. It's done anytime you give a leftist, especially a leftist reporter, a chance to get on their soapbox about it. The peaceful transfer of power, or the assaults on the Capitol, or the brave men and women of the Capitol Police, who, by the way, go ask Stephen's son what it meant to be a brave member. In his case, what was he? He was the head of the Capitol Police, and he was not very well liked by people like Pelosi. So they needed to shit can him because, God forbid, you have that kind of thing going on. But he was calling consistently in for hours for them to send the National Guard in after Pelosi had refused it, after Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., had refused to sign off on it. And they basically allowed his Capitol Police to be maybe not killed, like was suggested by all of the legacy media, and maybe it wasn't by a majority of the people there, who I've said many times were mostly peaceful people that were involved in a protest that got a little too far, but they were put at risk by the handful of loonies in the crowd that thought it would be fun and appropriate for some reason to attempt to assault or harass or do something against Capitol Police, and really did untold damage to the reputation of. It's amazing that Trump won the election so strongly in this situation, and it's because there's certain things that hold on, I got a little crossed up there. Let me try and figure out what I was going to relate that to. Who cares? Anyway, the point is that say the incoming president is going to nominate people for his cabinet, and he's picking people that would be recommended by the general established D.C. crew. This is going to be somebody who's doing like Christopher Wray is the embodiment of that. So you just wouldn't change it. Like, he's not going to. It's not that he's nonpartisan. He's still totally partisan. He just minimizes the impact of the partisan actions and attempts to sweep them away. And he also has a very uncanny ability of passing the buck, despite the fact that he is the FBI director. He says that he takes full responsibility, yet in his capacity of full responsibility, he's never fired anybody who did anything wrong. He never has put them on leave without pay. He's, aside from whistleblowers, of course, and aside from people who have got up, walked out, and was told the truth, and that's like there's a couple of the few senators that still seem to really value the idea behind our law enforcement being there to help the citizens, not harm the citizens, and that's the exact opposite from what Dan Goldman would want to have happen. But nevertheless, he's the most important person for the job because he's seen. Yeah, that's right. I wanted to bring up this clip because it was so important. Let me see. I got to get out of this real quick, so hold on. I hope I still have that page up, but if I don't, I can bring it back up pretty quick. It is, I gotta get rid of this. Yeah, I don't have it up, but I can bring it up. So this was, I think this is a deputy director of the FBI. Or, no, not deputy director of FBI. It was someone in a position of pretty high-ranking power in the, was it DOJ or FBI? I can't remember. It was one or the other. Being questioned by Ted Cruz in a committee hearing about the events of January 6th, and specifically, this was about the discussion around the FBI's involvement in January 6th, because it's widely been discussed. The most common discussion is around the Ray Epps dude who was captured, doing very antagonistic things to incite the crowd to do something that would have been illegal or against. It's so egregious that it would force Capitol Police to step in, and yet, that'll be in a clip later. But I'll just say now, in a situation like that, there would also be information coming in and going to people on the ground who would be either FBI agents that are undercover, or, and this one's a harder one to go through the motions to figure out, because these aren't actual FBI agents. They are they're informants that are called confidential human sources, which are basically the same thing as a informant. There's people not directly employed as FBI agents, but they're people that gather intelligence and go undercover for the FBI to provide intelligence and information about an individual they're surveilling or something. And there's a lot of belief, especially because of Ray Epps and the way that he acted on January 5th and January 6th, which, by the way, on January 5th, when he's saying, "We need to go into the Capitol," and the crowd goes, "No, Fed." The guy who's in that crowd, who's one of the first people to start saying that, is Baked Alaska, which I think I've mentioned that before. If you're not familiar with Baked Alaska, he's a disgraced YouTuber who was at one point somebody who claimed to be an America First right-wing supporting streamer that wanted to do debates between people with different viewpoints. Ended up moving to LA and becoming this guy who was just essentially not even really a leftist, but just complete fraud when it comes to the idea of doing something because he believed it. He was doing it because he wanted to make money and more or less grift off of the movement to be a controversial figure, which is why one of the last things he did while he was still being watched at all was, I think I mentioned this too, he was going up to, in particular, I think it was people at the bouncers at different bars and nightclubs and things, and attempting to get into fights with these people, and then as soon as it was about to go down, he would pull out this can of mace and spray him in the face with it, and then he'd run away and act like it was some victory, and it's kind of pathetic. But anyway, that gives you the... but nevertheless, he had a point at that specific incident where he was listening to this dude Ray Epps talk about how we need to go into the Capitol, and no, we don't need to go into the Capitol. This guy's probably a Fed. I'm going to point that out. Nevertheless, again, it didn't stop Ray Epps from once again continuing the same type of dialogue and rhetoric and same types of speeches that he did over and over again. And as a matter of fact, as a mob was running towards the Capitol, he was making sure that everybody knew exactly which direction to go by saying, the Capitol is this way, pointing, in that specific direction. So, anyway, why can't I find... Here we go. Basically, the idea ultimately is about... is this guy a confidential human source for the FBI? And that led to the idea that, well, okay, were there FBI undercover agents, or were there confidential human sources that were there on the Capitol grounds during the insurrection, quote unquote, or who were actually there in some cases, maybe before, maybe in some cases, as has been alluded by Clay Higgins, one of our favorite members of the House, were there even so far as undercover agents or confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters that were already inside the Capitol before the breach, meaning they intended, or they expected or anticipated the breach and had people stationed inside the Capitol already prepared to antagonize the crowd to further action that would have been in violation of the protection of the... I don't know what the code is on that, but or what the charge would be on that, but as you can see, not exactly the most, or as you can imagine, not exactly the most sincere and honest way to go about presenting the true events of January 6th. I might not be able to... Where in the hell is that? Okay, here we go. I just have to find... Oh, here we go. Okay, here's the episode. Let me see if I can find the part I'm looking for. Because, like I said, this was on that very subject, and it was in a congressional hearing. Oops, wrong button. It was in a congressional hearing, and it was...
The loving father...
It was in reference to a question that was asked by Ted Cruz about the undercover agents, or... I think I found it. Yes, I did. Hey, look at that. Not bad. Okay, let me see if I can make sure I get the whole thing. Okay, sweet. Not bad. Of course I keep... I'm sorry, guys. I have this weird problem where I for some reason, accidentally right-click all the time. My finger just seems to hit the edge of the right mouse button consistently all the time. It drives me crazy. And I don't know why. This hasn't been a problem my whole life, but it's really started accelerating as of late, and I don't really know why. But yeah, it's really weird. But anyway. Okay, here we go. I'm just getting to the part where we can start this, because I did find it. I just want to make sure. Here we go. Okay. All right, so this was the line of questioning. And, oh, wait, hold on. There we go. Wrong thing. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I think we're good to go. Did I turn the volume back on? Yeah, it's on. Okay. All right. Oh, nope. This one.
Down.
How many FBI agents or confidential informants actively participated in the events of January 6th?
Sir, I'm sure you can appreciate that I can't go into the specifics of sources and methods.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants actively participate in the events of January 6th? Yes or no?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants commit crimes of violence on January 6th?
I can't answer that, sir.
Did any FBI agents or FBI informants actively encourage and incite crimes of violence on January 6th?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Okay.
Okay, that was not Guy.
Now, here's the thing. That answer means yes. I hate to say it, but there's not much conjecture. Because here's the thing. If the answer was no, there would be no hesitation at all. They could say no. It's not breaking the law. It's not exposing anything. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. The reason they say they can't answer it is because they have, and they are hiding behind the confidentiality protocols of the FBI, even in a body like Congress or the Senate, because this is a public hearing. Now, maybe in a private hearing, they could coax a little bit more out of this person, but especially when it comes to in front of the American people, which is, I think, honestly, in my world, like, sorry, you're a fucking employee of the American people. You work for the government, which means you work on the taxpayer dime. You're doing the work that we pay for you to do. The least you could do is tell us the truth about what the fuck you're doing. Sorry to be so colorful about that, but that's just the way I feel about it. And to hear these games, like this bullshit, when you know damn well that all is true. And the real kicker, once again, is like that last question about violence. They encouraged or committed violence. You can't answer that one either. So you're telling me that people that are either agents at the FBI or sources, confidential human sources at the FBI, were involved in either, this is the most likely case, coercing violent action on January 6th, specifically for the purpose, and this is the only real purpose, to frame Donald Trump in the worst possible light, to put all the emphasis on him and him alone as this big orchestrator of all of this, when in truth, the FBI has all this stuff in place, ready to go. As Kash Patel points out in one interview, maybe I shouldn't spoil it, but I'll spoil this one part. This wasn't just something that was planned like, a couple days before January 6th. This had to be a couple months long, at least, process to be prepared for operation this complex. Goes back to the pipe bomber situation that Tucker Carlson has delved into several times, which involves I'm on wrong screen. Involves the two pipe bombs that were placed, one at the DNC and then the other one at it was really at the Capitol Hill Club, but it's close to the RNC. But those two pipe bombs, when you look at the footage of the actual events surrounding the pipe bombs, there's this what's the word? There's this weird sort of like the agents on scene for the pipe bomb at the DNC specifically, because that's where all the bulk of the footage is from. They supposedly get a guy walking up to their van, which once again, I don't know the protocol, but something tells me that just strolling up to a Capitol Hill police, or even worse, a Capitol Police, not Capitol Hill Police, Capitol Police, or even worse, a Secret Service van, to tell the agents inside, hey guys, I don't know if you guys would be interested, but there's this pipe bomb over there in the bushes, so I don't know, maybe you want to check that out. All right, see you later, bros. Like, what do we have going on here? And then not only that, it takes them a couple of minutes before they even get out of the van. The first thing they do, one agent just strolls over nonchalantly with his phone and takes a picture of it. Which, okay, yeah, you need to get a photo and send it to bomb text or whatever. I get that. But why in the hell? You don't have no idea about anything about this supposed pipe bomb. Okay, and now you just are going to walk over to a distance. It's not very far from it. Like, if it were to go off, you'd be shredded to pieces. But even worse, probably the most irresponsible thing, if this all was legit, a group of school children walking across the street is allowed to do that while they're still trying to do what, I don't know. They sure are not really concerned about the damage that might be caused by this pipe bomb to nearby civilians, to themselves, to anybody, and except for maybe Kamala Harris, who was at the DNC at that point. But the point that I think is highlighted by that, yo, hey, what's up, man? How's it going, Eddie? Raw, man. Jeez, I haven't watched wrestling in forever. Although, to be fair, I was more into the Attitude Era, and to be completely honest, I love Stone Cold, but man, my man Shawn Michaels, Heartbreak Kid, fuck yeah. Anyway, yeah. So back to serious stuff. The idea of that all going down is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous that would be the situation. Now, here's the thing. Kash Patel is a guy who was in the administration from beginning to end, has stayed loyal, released a book, Government Gangsters. It goes into a lot of detail about all these subjects. It's a good read, actually. It's got a lot of information that's really important. But people have to understand, when it comes to the FBI, there's a reason it's been referred to as the world's most premier law enforcement agency, because of how meticulous and how that badge, just seeing that badge immediately is like a intimidation factor for anybody who might be hiding something, you know. Now it's turned into a enforcement arm of the Democratic Party, and everyone's just supposed to be, you know, acting like, okay, well, there you go, you know, that's how it works. No, that's not how it works. That's not how law enforcement's supposed to work. That's not how the judicial system's supposed to work. That's not how America's supposed to work. None of that stuff is how that stuff is supposed to work. And Kash Patel knows that. And here's the thing. Because of his experience with the FBI, because of his experience with the justice system, he knows all of this stuff. And because he's held a security clearance in those areas, he knows so many of the things that they don't want the people to know. And this is the point. This is point one. Because of that, the Democrat Party, especially the hardcore leftists in the party, they're freaking out because of that fact specifically. He knows the dirty secrets that have been going on specifically over the last few years. He's even gone right up to the line in some interviews without actually coming straight out and saying, exactly what it is that he's insinuating. But he's basically insinuated about as much as you can insinuate exactly what it is that is going on. And the Democrats, and especially people who are, especially more than anything, the people who are unelected, the bureaucratic state, the government employees whose jobs are pointless, who do nothing but suck up the American people's tax money, to sit there and do a job that they don't need to do, they're not probably qualified to do, might be hired because of representational reasons. We need another black woman in this office, so let's just hire this person. I mean, it's gotten so incredibly out of hand in terms of the way these organizations run. And the people at the top, they aren't really that concerned about it because, as has been said by many people, including Tulsi Gabbard, by the way, who wasn't in the law enforcement arm. She's in the military, but it was more her time in the Congress that was specifically illuminating to her, it seems like, because of the recognition that you're there to go along with the Democrat orthodoxy. You're there to go along with what the Democrats, and in particular the Democrat elite members, the Obamas, the Clintons, what they want you to do. Meaning, to hell with your constituents, those people that voted you in, yeah, forget about them. And the reason they can say that is because, two reasons. Number one, I have no idea why, but there's still people that are dumb enough to vote for these people that don't care. Tulsi Gabbard did care, which is why she's no longer a senator and why she ran for president and got accused of being groomed by the Kremlin by Hillary Clinton. But she also seems like she couldn't take the in particular, the sharp shift towards the pro-war stance that had one of the main reasons I'm no longer even sympathetic at all towards most Democrat policies or the Democratic Party itself. One of the main things that changed me from being someone who leaned left to someone who was more centrist and now leans more right is the idea that when I was someone who was, I considered myself on the left, one of the main things I talked about was how much I protested the Iraq War. I thought it was one of the most irresponsible things that a leader had done in the country in ages. It was one of the most pointless wars we'd been in. I was somebody who was constantly making reference to Vietnam. I'll admit it, but at the same time, there really are a lot of parallels there. And the funniest part is, not funny, but the most ironic part, I guess, is that after I was no longer sympathetic to that side and realized that side was just as big of a slave to the military-industrial complex as the right was, we get Joe Biden, who has even worse of a PR disaster pullout than we had from Vietnam, with people that were trying to get on a helicopter out from the building while the Viet Cong were swarming into Saigon. And then we had the disaster at the Kabul airport in Afghanistan, which was the single most humiliating withdrawal of American troops from a area in that I'm aware of. And so, yeah, it's amazing that kind of sharp pivot could be made. I mean, you have Kamala Harris as the Democrat nominee for president, who's being endorsed by fucking Liz Cheney, and Dick Cheney, of all people. Two people that were, one person specifically who was instrumental in the Bush administration's war policy, who was recognized by the left and reviled by the left as this warmonger. And now his daughter, who was equally as, pro-war as he is cozying up to Kamala Harris. And why? Well, because she hates Donald Trump. And why is Kamala do it? Well, who knows? She's just probably trying to get anyone she can get that has name recognition to support her. And especially to those who hated Trump already. If you get somebody who hates Trump, then let's get another person who hates Trump, and it'll be great. It's incredibly cynical and a very, very revealing move that you would do that. But once again, the morality was thrown out the window a long time ago. So that's one of that's some of the rundown at that point. Now, here's the other point, and this was a little bit more political than being so dangerous per se, but it really will be something to pay attention to, especially if you are somebody who is either on the right, or even if you're not on the right, if you're just somebody who supported Trump in the last election, or who supports Trump, or at the bare minimum, doesn't support Trump, but hates what's been going on over the last 4 years and wants to see things return to a more stable, more relatively normal United States. Here's the thing. When Matt Gaetz, which we covered a lot, when I dedicated a whole episode to it. I talked about it several times. And when he withdrew, I was one of the few people I was happy with Pam Bondi. I think it was a great choice, but I really still was like, man, I just still wish that we had that. Matt Gaetz is a bulldog. And he would have gone in there and he would have been able to, he wouldn't have been, and not to say Pam Bondi is not an aggressive, prosecutorial-minded individual. Just the thing is that Matt Gaetz is so unapologetically ferocious, and he angers leftists so much that they got incredibly, incredibly upset. And they eventually ended up, riling up people enough to where there was enough pushback to where he withdrew. Now here's the part that's important, because in my estimation, this is going to be both a litmus test for people who call themselves Republicans that are in the Senate, and for anybody that really actually supports the MAGA agenda, that is doing anything more than, because, you can make the argument that, okay, there's been all these allegations around Matt Gaetz, and it's maybe not Matt Gaetz himself or what he stands for, but it could be the heat that is going to bring down on the party, and it's the attention it's going to get from the media, and the potential. This is why Matt stepped down in the first place, is because he believed it was going to be more of a detriment to Trump to have him stay on than to replace him, because of how many hours of ridiculous allegations and hearsay and these types of. It's always funny hearing a news anchor say, "Well, what don't you think it's a little reckless to be supporting someone who's alleged to have been?" I'm sorry, alleged. So meaning there's been no case. There's been no maybe something's been brought, but he's not been charged. He's not been appearing before a jury. He's not been appearing before a case. He's not been in court for the issue. Alleged means jack shit. They alleged that Bill Clinton got a blowjob from several interns at the White House. I mean, people still look back and say that Bill Clinton was a pretty effective president, and in my opinion, when it comes to left-wing presidents, he was. He at least had the sense in his politically minded brain to be like, you know what, this border right now, I've not been giving it enough attention. We've got a real immigration issue. I'm going to do something to fix that now. It may be a cynical reason, but at the bare minimum, he's doing something about it. You know what Biden did? He doubled down and said, no, the border's secure. What are you talking about? No one's coming across the border. No. They're doing the same thing now. When I hear on these shows people asking people on the right, sir, numbers are lower than they've been. Okay, first of all, that's fantastic. What do you say about the 11 to 15 million people already that have crossed the border? Does that magically make them more tolerable? No, not really. And secondly, that's not necessarily true. They just aren't, as I've said before, they're just not crossing the border on land anymore. They are being put on planes and boats and taken through different routes so that they can be a little more, shall we say, inconspicuous to looky-loos who want to know who's coming into the country. Because God forbid you want to know the kinds of people who are entering your country illegally. And I never explained this yesterday, by the way. I want to make sure I make this clear. I make this mistake still sometimes, and I try to clear it up when I do, but I sometimes forget because it's done so much in the media. And I think that for the sake of the importance of words and their actual meaning, I want to make sure I make this clear. When people use the word migrant or these migrants who have come across the border, that's not exactly what. That's not the word you should be using. Migrant refers to, in general, someone who is like a seasonal worker or someone with a visa to work in the United States for a certain period of time and then go back. Those are migrant workers. That's why you hear that sort of term, those two words put together so often, migrant workers. They're not American citizens, but they're legally allowed to be in the United States to conduct work for the time that they're there, and when the time period's up, they go back to their home country. So when people use the word migrant, there's an implication there that they are here under some sort of technical reasoning while remaining a non-citizen. That's not what they are. They're illegal immigrants. They're illegal aliens. They're illegal, whatever you want to call them in that regard. They're not migrants. They're not even illegal migrants. They're illegal immigrants. The immigrants that should not be in this country did not go through the proper channels, and I watched this. I suffered through this, and it drove me crazy. I started watching those Jubilee, and oh God, I'm not going to watch those anymore because it's just, first of all, it's not exactly the best format. Secondly, they allow people who are incredibly bad faith to go on and on. I don't necessarily align so much with Ben Shapiro. I think that he's kind of someone who bridges the gap between neocon Republican and modern day Republican. He just happens to be able to put it aside to vote for Trump because it's still in his best interest. But he, no doubt, and without, he even said it there, he didn't support Trump until Ron DeSantis was out of the race, which is who he did support. Nothing against Ron DeSantis. I like Ron DeSantis. I just didn't think he was the best candidate over Trump, and obviously neither did the American people. But it always seemed like while Ron DeSantis was running, Ben Shapiro had a serious chip on his shoulder for Donald Trump. Like, he just thought of him as like this hindrance to the proper candidate that was going to restore integrity back to the. It was this snobby elitist mentality that just, it drives me crazy, and it reminds me of the old Republican Party before Trump. But anyway, there are still tons of areas though where I agree with him, and one of them is definitely on the trans agenda. And one whole segment was this woman who transitioned to a man, and she had a beard, and she had she pretty much had pulled off a look that was pretty good as far as trans people go. She didn't just put on green hair and take some testosterone and let herself get a little bit more muscular and then say, yep, okay, I'm a man. No, she actually looked a lot like a woman. But the question was on rape, and the question was actually on abortion, but the subject of rape got brought up, and Ben's answer was what a lot of conservative pro-life answers are, is that it's a terrible thing, but the baby is not responsible for the rape, and I don't think it should be killed. Now, I hold a little bit different stance. I still don't believe after a certain point. This is where leftists still would be belligerently angry with me that you should be able to get an abortion, unless there's a circumstance where you've been tied down or locked up for the majority of the time you carry the pregnancy. But if you got, in the modern sense, because to be honest, let's face it, a lot of modern sense ideas of rape are, when I got drunk and had sex with this guy, then I regret it, so therefore he raped me. No, that's not what rape is. But this fucking weirdo sits there and just goes off and non-stop. First of all, he doesn't let Ben speak for the majority of the time he's sitting there. He eats up all his time to call him every name in the book, and then he accuses him, and this is the most ridiculous thing, of constantly highlighting and accusing his community of being dangerous, terrible people. No, that's not what Ben does. Ben does not focus on trans people all the time, constantly. He focuses on politics. If there's an incident involving trans people, I don't know, let's say a girl who thinks she's a boy and so hopped up on testosterone and so aggressive and so angry and so bitter and probably has God knows what kinds of underlying mental issues, decides to go into an elementary school and shoot 9-year-olds in the face. And as opposed to every other mass shooting at a school in our history, the left decides, nah, this manifesto that this killer wrote, we can't have that going out. She's showing how this ideology can lead to things like wanting to murder middle-class white families. No. So when that document started to be leaked, it's like, yeah, that's about what we'd expect from people who advocate for gun control, because in this case they can't really make that claim because it's fairly obvious at this point that this girl, I don't give a shit. She's a fucking murderer. She's a piece of shit. I don't care what her issues were. You don't murder innocent children because your trans community is being, in your eyes, disrespected by community. I'm sorry, fuck off. Because half of you guys are now same people who are wandering out there with Queers for Hamas t-shirts on, not recognizing that if you stepped 1 foot into Palestine, they would throw you off a goddamn roof. And I'm sorry, once again, I'm angry and I'm motivated by that in this episode, but good Lord, these people. Anyway, and then there's of course, a handful of other segments where everybody strawmanned every kind of argument from the right. They didn't represent any kind of realistic perspective. They hardly ever even stuck to the topic. They wanted to go off on every direction under the sun. And then at the end, when they get comments from people, they accuse Ben of being the one who goes off on tangents. No, He's presenting hypotheticals that relate directly to the subject at hand. You just don't want to address them because they're inconvenient for you. That's the difference. Anyway, I got off on a tangent there, and I'll come back around. So here's my point with what I was getting at before. When it comes to the people that were vocally in the media questioning Matt Gaetz, especially in terms of this the congressional investigation that was gone on that had gone on for into Matt Gaetz, as these allegations of sexual assault and sex with a 17-year-old girl and blah blah blah. And which, by the way, it seems like this has been mostly debunked. But regardless, the point is that Matt Gaetz is well known. He's hated by the left. They weren't going to like that nomination at all. And the senators who were noticing this were like, do we really want to have... Because bear in mind, the Senate still has more Republicans in it. These are older, more establishment Republicans. They are the type that are the ones you typically think of when you think of the more neocon Republican figures. A lot of them still hold those beliefs. I mean, one of the greatest examples, Lindsey Graham. I mean, it's almost a meme at this point how much Lindsey Graham just loves bombing other countries. But the point is that, okay, you aired your grievances. The Trump campaign heard them. Matt Gaetz stepped down. They nominated Pam Bondi. That seems like a pretty decent trade. But at this point, the Republicans, at the bare minimum, who are going to be in the majority, you've kind of used up your skepticism points, I would say, unless there was something really egregious, really, really egregious. And Kash Patel most certainly doesn't fit that category. But if you were to go on and, which, here's the thing, because of the media response, which I would argue, like I said before, is even worse than to Matt Gaetz, especially from the media in particular. It's not coming so much from members of Congress this time, but it is coming from the media. It is coming from the left. They definitely hate this one, and like I said, it's because of. Let's just give a couple more examples. There's a couple of interviews. These are really short. I'm just going to go through a couple of them, which are damning as hell. Damning as hell as to what you can expect will be discussed by Kash Patel if he was to be nominated and confirmed to be the new FBI director. This is the kind of thing that which, by the way, once again, this is a campaign promise from Trump. More transparency from your government. Less classification of like just having everything classified. All these classified things that have, from decades ago that has no real reason to be classified. But then there's some that are like the Kennedy assassination or even 9/11. Why are we still unable to see the files for 9/11? Why are there still so many classified documents about 9/11? Especially why are there so many classified documents around the JFK assassination, considering how long it's been? The only possible reason can be the bad reflection on the government agencies that potentially were involved. Kash Patel has claimed to know the reasons why and the events surrounding the assassination. I believe him. Things like Jeffrey Epstein, and that's maybe the biggest one. Because once again, as I mentioned yesterday, and it's just become more and more apparent that this is possibly one of the most major reasons, is that Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book has still not been released to the public, nor have they really mentioned any of the names in the Black Book. Maybe one or two have been said, but I mean, they still try to say that Trump was this guy who was affiliated with so closely with Jeffrey Epstein. As soon as the allegations originally came out, when the first ones came out, when he was given the slap on the wrist sentence, there was essentially, to be fair, I believe Bill Clinton did the same thing. But Donald Trump cut ties, stopped talking to him, didn't want anything to do with him, and stayed away. And there were other people that didn't. Another great example is Prince Andrew in the UK, the guy who's kind of the embarrassment to the royal family because that guy was seen probably more often than just about any political figure in any country with Jeffrey Epstein. But yeah, that's another one because there's concern that the contents of that black book will be released. But let me go over a few of these clips real quick, and this will just illustrate some of the things that Kash Patel has discussed on interview after interview with all sorts of different people about what needs to happen with the FBI and the Department of Justice to be able to get them back to being an agency that has the credibility and what would be the word? The prestige that it had once had. So I'll pull this one up. This one's with Steve Bannon. This one's pretty good. So, yeah. Okay, here we go. This was, as he said right there, this was back when it was believed that he may be head of the CIA. I don't even know if this was, yeah. This is the same thing. So anyway, but before it was the idea that he was going to be the director of the FBI. But anyway, so we'll do this one. Do one with Glenn Beck, and then we'll do a short one with Tim Pool, and then we'll call it quits. So here we go.
Criminal prosecutions. Kash, I know you're probably going to be head of the CIA, but do you believe that you can deliver the goods on this in a pretty short order the first couple of months so we can get rolling on prosecutions?
Yes, we got the bench for it, Bannon, and you know those guys. I'm not going to go out there and say their names right now so the radical left-wing media can terrorize them. But, excuse me, the one thing we learned in the Trump administration the first go-around is we got to put in all-America patriots top to bottom. And we got them for law enforcement. We got them for intel collection. We got them for offensive operations. We got them for DOD, CIA, everywhere. And the one thing we will do that they never will do is we will follow the facts and the law and go to courts of law and correct these justices and lawyers who have been prosecuting these cases based on politics and actually issuing them as lawfare. We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice. And Steve, this is why they hate us. This is why we're tyrannical. This is why we're dictators, because we're actually going to use the Constitution to prosecute them for crimes they said we have always been guilty of.
Yes. This is why I was so thrilled to hear this news. And so many people were likewise thrilled to hear this. This guy gets it more than almost anybody else. He knows the actual inner workings more than just about anybody else. And when you hear stuff like that, it's like it puts it all into perspective as to what is going on. And this is the message of this episode, is that while this is a great thing, and while I can put this out there and issue my statement as a warning, it's like, Congress, you had better not pull the same thing you did with Matt Gaetz, and you better not be getting weak-kneed and second-guessing it this time, because if you do, you're not only really now seriously putting Trump's next administration in extreme jeopardy, but you are denying the will of the people who had this as one of their main reasons for re-electing Donald Trump. to see this sort of thing done, because, quite frankly, and obviously to anybody who followed the administration's Trump's first administration, these are things that he probably would have done if he had known any better the first time, because he was so unfamiliar with Washington, D.C. and the political figures there, that where the hell is the folder? Here, let me see. Here we go. So now that he does know, and now that he's selecting the right people, they're in a complete panic, and they don't want people like this guy in there, and that's why this is such a dangerous time, because not only are we facing the threats from potentially senators who are on the supposedly right, who just are more than willing to go along with the uniparty and vote against something that would benefit the entire country, so long as their particular buddies stay in positions of power, and they will eventually get their comeuppances, what they believe they deserve for their loyalty to Mitch McConnell or whoever, and that's really dangerous. But the other one is because of something like this, which we'll do this one, and then we'll do the last one, which is a Tim Pool one, but we'll do the Glenn Beck one next. This is a great.
I'm not saying it's not there.
So,
who are you going to get to get that?
For instance, who is currently holding, this is way off the topic, but who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book?
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
that's under direct control of the director of the FBI. Just like the manifesto from the Nashville school shooting of the Catholic school.
Yeah. What I was just talking about.
It's not the Nashville police or PD thing.
What I was just talking about, I didn't even remember that was here, but I was just talking about the shooter from Nashville, the transgender shooter whose manifesto is filled with I hate all these stupid white kids and their stupid white fathers who come up in their fancy cars and pick them up and take them to their rich neighborhoods back home, blah, blah. This was a incredibly bitter, angry girl who suddenly, probably went in for a 30-minute meeting with some hack who claimed to be a psychologist and decided that she was transgender within 20 minutes and gave her the strongest hormones you can get, meaning she's now being pumped full of testosterone while she already is incredibly, aggressively angry at people of a certain group that she uses as a group to blame for everything wrong with her and, people around her and everything else. And that's who they're willing to protect. So it's despicable. But anyway, finish this up. There's not much left of this, but here. Whoops.
We don't want this out. The FBI airmailed into that operation and said, this is not getting out. Because they do that because this is another government gangster operation. All these local law enforcement communities get funding from the DOJ and FBI for local programs. And if you don't cooperate, you're not getting your $1 million for this, and you're not getting and that's a lot of money to these local districts.
And they need that to, by the way, also keep up with current technology, to update all their computers and their software and their, all the things that need to be updated every few years. And it's like they need that money for that. And so you're not just punishing that agency or that police department when you do that. You're punishing a whole community that needs their police department to be at the best operating force they can operate at. So it's really sadistic. But here's the last one, and this one goes back to the January 6th thing with the clip with Ted Cruz I was talking about. We'll go over this and we'll wrap it up then after that, because this is kind of real crux of the episode today that I'm kind of going after, because I've talked so excitedly about these people, and I still feel exactly the same way. However, I think it's responsible to go over the very real possibilities that could be side effects or results that stem from these nominations, based on how belligerently angry the left has become in terms of what's happening. This is what they were worried about in the first Trump term, and they kind of like, oh man, dodged a bullet. And this is exactly why they raided Mar-a-Lago. They launched all the lawfare. They accused him of everything under the sun. They tried every kind of smear they could try, and still are to this day trying to paint him in the worst light possible, because they know that if he was given another chance, and with what he knows now and the people he knows now, people that only someone like Donald Trump would have the balls, have the balls to actually dominate and put in those positions, to actually do the things that people in the DC freaking bubble have been saying they're going to do for years, and do this and do that, expose corruption. No, you're not. You're gonna throw some crumbs to us every once in a while to pretend like you're doing something. It's going to be the same old thing. You don't see reactions like this, what we've been seeing, to something that is going to be just that same old status quo. You see that to something that's like, wait a minute, this is a legit threat to our hold on power. We can't have this. So that's how you really know that this is legit, and more importantly, it's what the people voted for. So we'll get to this last one, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. And that one is right here. All right. I got most of my clips in order today, except for the one I had to find online, but that's all right. Anyway, here we go. Okay, not starting.
As a former federal prosecutor and a public defender who defended a lot of these types of cases, what you need to show is whether or not the FBI and government agents were using undercover operatives and informants on the day of January 6th. Because if you can show that, you know they've been out. Hang on. But the paperwork shows having run informants, that's a 6-month buildup. Minimum.
Right.
Minimum. It's not like they just dropped them into the Proud Boys and said, hey, go, don't disrupt, please. So once you prove that, then you defeat the insurrection narrative with the FBI's own documentation. Forget what the videotape shows.
Just for people who you can't see what's going on in the room, the reason why Kash just said hang on or whatever is because I started smirking and rolling my eyes. And what I meant to convey with that is, come on, we know they were involved.
No, look, I totally
clarify,
agree.
Though.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I know definitively. What I'm saying is a reasonable suspicion is that there were agents. There's a video showing a guy with an earpiece pulling people into the building. All right. Mm-hmm. You combine that with the evidence of Ray Epps, and it looks like you have a preponderance of evidence suggesting there may have been federal law enforcement involved in making that thing happen.
I'll get you beyond a reasonable doubt. Two pieces of information. Ray Epps was on FBI's most wanted list one day, and the next day he was off of the FBI's most wanted list. There are only two ways that happens. You die, or your informant. Put that aside. Under congressional testimony, Jill Sanborn, who I used to work with, the head of the FBI Counterintelligence Division, in charge of all these investigations, testified under oath when Senator Cruz asked her, flat out, were there federal agents involved with January 6th? And she said, quote, Senator, I can't answer that at this time. Not if the answer was definitively no, having been a DOJ FBI guy myself, she would have gone there and said, nope, absolutely not. The reason she said I can't answer that is because of the same stonewalling they gave us during Russiagate with Christopher Steele, Halper, and everybody else. It's the same narrative, and I'm telling you they were there.
So you're saying that she said I can't answer that because the answer is yes, and that would compromise whatever their operation was.
Exactly.
Yep. And there you have it. That's probably one of the most important things right there, because what have they been doing nonstop? What is the number one thing that constantly gets brought up as a case against Donald Trump? January 6th, January 6th, January 6th. Other than Russia, I think maybe now it's more common to hear January 6th than Russia even. But that's it. That's the key right there. And when you see, when you see just what we've already seen so far, it's hard to even come up with any kind of explanation, even trying your best to steelman something. Like, you can't really think of anything you can say that would really justify the response from the FBI. The pipe bombs, the stance of Nancy Pelosi and of Muriel Bowser to not bring in the National Guard, the lies in the media, you know how I've discussed this before, the messaging that's coordinated entirely with every left-wing media organization to always have the exact same talking points, exact same language, very specific terms you hear that are always repeated by every single news organization. And one of the biggest ones that started the whole thing out was insurrection. Insurrection is a very specific, very, obviously notorious type of charge to label at somebody. It's one of the most serious things you could accuse someone of, especially a president. And the reason is because they knew of the consequences that would come along with just even an accusation of staging an insurrection, let alone, some kind of court agreeing on that being the case. But nevertheless, the ultimate point is that there's just no way to justify any other way that there was definitely an FBI presence at the Capitol on January 6th. The only question is to what extent and what are the actual events that took place and who authorized it. That's the things that Kash knows already. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. And when you recognize that, you realize that's why the Democrats are going crazy. And this is why I say, the Republicans in the Senate, if you don't confirm, or if you get weak-kneed like you did with Matt Gaetz and something, I have heard from a number of Senate Republicans that they just point to his record and say, well, yeah, it's obvious he's qualified. Look at his resume. It's filled with nothing but qualified points to why you would nominate him. He was a member of Trump's former administration. And one key point you can always point out there is that, nothing was, the sky didn't come falling down during that term with him involved. So why would it come in this term? And, you can make the case about why there would be a lot of disinfectant that would be used that wasn't able to be deployed last time around. But what you can't say is that there's anything in his record that suggests he would present a danger to the American people, to the national security, or to any individual person when it comes to the role of being the director of the FBI. So yeah, those reasons especially. And that's why I was so adamant. It's so funny that the week I was talking about that the most was the week that ended with his nomination. But yeah, it's something we're gonna have to keep our eyes on. And I really hope that for all the sake of anybody that really wanted Trump to go in and wanted the change that was has been discussed so much by him and his campaign, that he's been fought at every turn from being able to execute, has been unable to get done. That's why I say, don't let it happen again. Just don't let it happen again. Swallow your pride. Get over the idea that Washington's going back to... Because even if you got your wish of the Republican Party turning back to the good old neocon Republicans, guess what? The Democrats are not going back to what they were before. They're not. They're too far down they're too far gone. It's if there's a reform, it's going to be a radical reform, and it's going to have something similar, honestly, to Donald Trump, but on the left, where you're going to have a leader who brings it back to a point where the values of the left are back in place, but they're represented in a way that's a little bit different and a little bit more populist. Things like where we're arguing about tax policy. We're not arguing about should we send millions more to Ukraine. So yeah, that's my ultimate thoughts. But anyway, that's where I will cut it for today. This was indeed a fun episode, although a little gloomy. But this was it was really important. That was why I mentioned on X. It's going to be an important one today, and it kind of sucks it was a little late, but I got it up, so in any case, people can watch it from the replay. So tomorrow I should be back, hopefully on time, or maybe a little late, but by a little late, I mean on time. But anyway, at least more like I normally am. But by the way, I will be finally being able to expand my my audio equipment pretty soon, which means my dream setup is almost done for my home recording and broadcasting setup. It's almost complete, and I'll be completing it soon. I'm super excited about that. But anyway, I'll talk about that more when it's ready. But anyway, and at that time I'll probably do some kind of minor overhaul. I've been thinking about a minor overhaul of some of the imagery and branding sort of related stuff, because I think around that time is when I'm going to kind of try to, because we're heading into the new year, start of the new year. I'm probably going to, like I've said, I haven't really fully dug my heels in as far as like, or at least I haven't, fully planted exactly the flag and said like, okay, this is exactly what I stand for. This is exactly what the channel is going to be like. This is exactly how things are going to go. I've been experimenting with some things. I've been changing some things around. I've been using certain things to experiment and see what works and what doesn't. But once I do have those things in place, you'll kind of see a much more firm, direct, and specific kind of flavor flavor. You could call it flavor, you could call it style, you could call it whatever you want to call it, but the identity of the show will have a lot more of a consistent sort of routine, and so right now I'm just more or less trying to get the habit and the experience necessary of the preparational phase of actually doing the work, but doing it with a little bit of leniency as to what I'm going to do. But it'll be very soon when I'm going to be kind of launching this. And my hope also, as I've said before, my hope also is to do this in a sort of podcast format. So that'll be a whole other battle, but we'll see how that goes. But I'm only letting you guys know this just so you know what to prepare for. But one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to, I said this before, I'm not giving up on this, and I'm not going to disappear on you guys. I know I've had some shaky times, but I'm not going to walk away from this. And while I've said before as well that that I'm enjoying this, I'm both having a really enjoyable time learning how this whole thing works, getting used to the style, and as well as ultimately setting as a goal. Because, like I've said before, I'm not somebody who's going to hide it. I'm honest about it. I do hope to one day earn some sort of type of income from doing this sort of thing, and whether that's from donations, whether that's from advertisers, whether that's from whatever, I'll have to see. But I'm not only doing this just for the entertainment for myself. I'm doing this because I think that I can do it well, and I think that I can do it in a way that would be financially beneficial, especially with my history in different career paths, considering they've all been, as I said before, they've all been media related somehow, even though tattooing not really media related, but at least art related. This one would be one of the few I haven't done that's right up my alley, I think, and it's one of the things I'm still interested in, regardless of whether I'm doing the show or not, is watching this kind of stuff. And where's the fun without talking about it? So, anyway, but that'll do it for the show today. Thank you, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves. Have a fantastic evening, and I'll talk to you then. Peace.
Now, I can't read it. There's no words on it.
Okay. Sure.
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out. What is?
For credits.
I don't know what that means. To play us out. What does that mean?